Okay, hello, welcome. As you can see, I'm still in bed. Got my coffee, got my water. If you get online today, well, no one's online at the moment, so I'll just start. I'll share with you why I'm in bed today. Let's make myself look a little bit decent. Goodness me. So yesterday Mum had to go to hospital and that was a big day. It was a very big day. We navigated our way through. She had a bit of a chest infection. She lives in an aged care facility, so there's a few things going on where I had to step up my communication. That was not confronting. Well, it was confronting because at one stage I was in a meltdown. Just wanted to bring her home because I wanted her to be safe and know that she was all okay, but I knew that she needed more tests and knew that we needed to get some things checked out. And so thank goodness I do this work. Thank goodness I trust myself and my truth, because it never lets me down. I let myself down sometimes when I don't follow through. But so I want to talk a little bit. There's no questions today. I have shared on the other channels a little bit about the dimensions, and so I'm going to share about that too on this channel here, depending on if anyone does jump on. So yes, I know she's good. So it was a late or early morning, and I'm happy to report that she's all fine. She will continue to improve, and so that's all good too. Well, that's wonderful, actually. Okay. Now, any questions that get sent? Last week was the first time I went on all 3 platforms, and I'll just make sure that the volume's up here because I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. If it does, I've just shared my story about my day and my night, and what I had to take care of, and why I'm sitting in my bed this morning doing the live. Right, so where am I? I'm a little bit scattered because I'm tired. I haven't had that much sleep, but one thing I am completely committed to, and that is doing what I said I would. And I know sometimes we can't, but we don't want to let if we know we're meant to, then we're meant to. If we know we're not, then we know we're not. So it's that little, I got on not because I have to be here, because I said I was going to do this. I could have put up a message to say, not this week, because I had a family emergency. But that's me stating that I've got drama going on and not the theme, right? So this morning, as much as I didn't want to be on camera, because it was 9:15, I went, oh shit, I meant to be on Instagram in 15 minutes, and I just got up. I knew I had to. I didn't want to, but I had to. I had to for me, it was my truth. And that's probably good to remember for yourselves, that to come back to that, because any resistance that shows up around that is part of the patterning. You're buying into your own beliefs around patterned thoughts, brain thinking, old ways of operating. So here we are. And no one's asked a question. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, what I think I haven't already said it, is last week I did questions, the same questions across all the platforms, because people had asked me in different ways. But what I'm going to do now is do those that come through via Instagram, on Instagram, those that come via Facebook through Facebook, and those that come via YouTube, I'll do through YouTube. And I'm going to increase the channels, so you'll find me on other places as well, but that's the idea. Okay. No one's here. I'm just having coffee by myself, having chats. So this morning I was talking about the 3rd, 4th, and 5th dimension. And I want to remind you that this is just my take on it. This is based on my experience of my own growth. I've been doing this work for a long time, but that doesn't mean anything. Everyone is unique to their own development, their own thought processes, where they are at in their journey itself. There's no one doing a wrong journey. And I want to be very clear about that. And because when we allow people to do their journey in their own way, there is nobody to save. There's nobody that's right. There's nobody that's wrong. There's not only just one way. And that works for us. And so I'm sharing the things that I've learnt and adapted to my own life along the way. Whether they're true or not, I've just noticed that it's given me a better experience. And I imagine that in 5 years' time, I'll be thinking to myself, wow, I didn't know that then. And if I'd known it then, but where I am is perfect. And so what I'm going to share with you is what I've got to share with you. All right, so I'm really sort of providing the disclaimer that I know anything at all. This is all based on my own experience. So my take on us as beings is that we are magnificent beings that are across all dimensions. We live in parallel universes, just to give it a picture, on so many different levels and so many different frequencies of energy that I cannot comprehend. And my belief is that we're meant to experience, that we, not meant to, but it's part of what we've chosen to experience as far as experiencing ourselves. And there's always something to learn about this ourselves, isn't there? There's always something to learn and grow and get. And it's not an exhausting experience. It's just like, what do I want to experience next? So when it comes to the third dimension, so there's nothing wrong with any of these dimensions. They just have very different scenarios occurring and ways of being. Now, because we are evolving all the time, we will continue to evolve within each dimension. And then we might not be matched to that dimension, or will operate within that dimension at a very different frequency. So we'll start off with the third dimension, because we all talk about, want to get to the fifth dimension. I'll talk about the fourth dimension a little bit because it's important, because it's part of what's available to us. So in the third dimension is where it is the physical realm. It is the physicalness, the system. A physical system is in place here. And when you're born into the physical realm, you get born into the system that is an occurrence here. And the system is familiar. We learn the system. We become familiar with the system. We kind of forget our true essence. It's like we can look, conditional love is there. That baby is in, it allows us to take full control. We have no control, right? So that's the essence of energy, of that it's free. It will go wherever it needs to go. Now, because we're born into the system has its rules and it has its regulations of how it desires you to operate. And when you conform to the system, then you meet the needs of the system, and then you meet the needs of that experience. Now, we're evolving creatures, right? So we get to a point. Have you ever met anyone who hasn't asked the question, what am I doing here? I need to go find myself. I just don't feel like I belong here. What is the meaning of life? It's probably it would be the biggest asked question in the whole entirety of our human life. Another little note I'd like to put in is that I don't believe in past lives. I used to, but that's where my evolution was. And I'm not saying I'm correct. I'm just saying that it works better for me not to believe in past lives, but to actually see us existing in all across parallel universes. So where was I going? Okay, I went off track a little bit there. So because we're evolving creatures, we can't help but not want more. We can't help but naturally evolve. Evolving is our natural way of being. It's our natural state. Now, within the system, we're not taught that that's our natural state. We're taught the rules of the system. Oh, shit. I've got to talk to that person. Excuse me. I'm not going to talk to them now. I'll let that go to message bank. Okay. So the system suddenly starts to get uncomfortable and we realize we don't want to conform. We want to be unique. We want to be ourselves. We want to love ourselves. We call it loving ourselves. We want to love ourselves enough to actually do the work in order to grow and develop. So we all get to places in the system where the system doesn't work. And yet we still believe in the system. We think the system is good, and we're just mixed up and we're confused and we don't really know who we are. We need to go on a retreat and find ourselves. That's how it sort of plays out. And then we start to begin that journey, right? Of we embark on the getting to know ourselves. And in that knowing of self, we learn how to become more present. We learn how to meditate. We learn about different dimensions. We learn about higher sources. We learn about, we learn all different things, but it's actually not higher sources. We're taught within the system that it's a higher source and that it's hard to access because it's high, and that we never get there because we're never high enough. And so there's this backward thought process when it comes to leveling up to a higher frequency. We're not actually going anywhere. We're just expanding our natural self, but we're not taught that. Now, in the fifth dimension, you can still access the third dimension. You can be in the world, but you just won't be of it. And so you will operate in a way with it not tied to the system, but you can live in the system without conforming to the system. And that's usually where you will start to live more in flow. And we call it flow as if it's something that magically arrives, but it's actually us expanding from within. We will start to, there's so many things that it's still used in the current third dimension that I don't want to go off track because I'm explaining different things that I don't now believe in, because there's a better way of accessing the energy. So I won't go there today. Maybe I'll do that some other time. So really, we talk about, everyone wants to get to the fifth dimension because we notice that the more that we engage in being present to ourselves and living the truth of who we are. Oh, yay, I've got somebody online. Whoever that is, you're welcome to say hi and say hello if you'd like. If not, stay in the background. It's really nice to see you here. And if you have a question, I would love to answer it because I've had no questions sent in. So just know that. Yeah, I've got to call that person. I'll put that on silent actually while I'm here. Question that you'd love to ask. So yes, please do. What's your question, Anastasia? I'll wait for you to type that question in. Oh, you might have gone offline because I'm not seeing you there on the live anymore. I would love to hear from your question. So when you reconnect, please just put it on there and I'll notice that you're there. Oh, there we go. How will the meeting between my dad and his son go? They are meeting for the first time in 25 years. Amazing. All right, so Anastasia, I will feel into the energy of that. That's huge, isn't it? I feel it's going to go really well. There is because initially what I saw was the father, and whatever he's experienced prior to that is he really wants that connection, because there's a softening in his heart that whatever journey he's been on, so regardless of who's initiated the meeting here, there's something that he realizes. And I feel that when he sees, it makes me feel very emotional. The emotion of it is, it's huge. It's when I say huge, I mean I can feel both son and dad energy. And because dad's energy is the way, wherever he is in his own evolution, in his life, in himself, it's really important for him to connect. And there's a softening around. I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of awkwardness. I don't feel, if it is, it's very short-lived. And he's just so happy to have a son there. That's what makes me feel emotional, is that your son's actually going to be met with a lot of love, and which is important for him to experience. Okay, wow. Okay. It's a really beautiful connection, and it's important. Why this is important is because rather than your son be the one who has, I guess, the more love, and his father, it's important it be the other way around for the experience, I guess. And it's not that it wouldn't matter really, because it would be playing out the way it's meant to play out. But your son is going to feel that love, and he's going to be happy because of that connection. So when you say, Anastasia, that your dad is very stoic and serious and not very emotional on the outside, so what you've said, do you feel that they will keep in contact after this meeting, or is it a one thing? Okay. There's definitely a wanting to stay in contact. I feel, and this is why, because the father energy is very, like it's him. He really wants the connection. And that's why it's so good for your son to have that, rather than the son be going, I really want connection with my dad, and him be the one that's got the main highest energy around this. And because then it warrants, the father naturally wants to have that connection, so wants the longevity of it. Now, because they live in different countries, so they can't meet regularly, and I do see, and probably because of the restrictions, is I see a flash of that togetherness, and then it feels really good, but it felt short-lived, and that's because it will be because they are another. Oh, it's not my son. We have the same. Oh, okay. So, all right. It's not my son. We have the same father. I've never met my brother before either. Let me just read that again so I make sure that I'm interpreting it right. Okay, so your brother and your dad are meeting father for the first time. Is that right? Is that what you're saying? Because I still, as I feel into, even if we've changed that scenario of the son, so it's the son to the father, but is that your brother? Okay, got it. All right, so that meeting there, whatever your father's been through, and whatever he's come across as in the past, we all evolve at some stage, don't we? And this is really important. It's super important that they meet, because this bond they're meant to have a bond. They're meant to have this meeting. And so, yeah, it does feel like a flash. And it's the energy around it is like, I see the younger son, but it's the son. It's like when you see a young 7-year-old, 8-year-old, or somebody young in those years, and they see their father and they just love that they've met their father. It's a bit like that energy where it feels like all those years sort of dissipate. And like I said, if there's any awkwardness initially, it is definitely not for long. That's what's there. Yeah, so that's really good. Is there anything else you need to know around that? Yeah, so obviously the meeting is going to be a little bit, That's why the flash showed up of where I see that sort of nice energy of the father and son meeting. Yeah, if there's anything else you want to know there, please go right ahead. Okay, so there's been a lot of separation there, hey? When it comes to you, yeah, I was just thinking, what's important right now is this relationship between father and son. Um, there's something, here's a problem with you, and the problem he has, and it's not personal, right? Um, it's not personally about who you are, but it's personal because of his experience growing up. And it's like he doesn't. It feels like there. If you ever let me ask a different question of, will you get to meet him? Maybe because maybe it's not now. Um, um, yeah, I don't see that it as a. It's not a big energy right now, and I see pink there though. So the pink, there's some unconditional love. So it's almost like this relationship between father and son has to establish a little bit more first, but it's easy. It will end up being really lovely. And I see down the track that you'll be included in the getting to know your brother as well. But right now, it doesn't feel like it's not something that he's quite ready for. So, hmm. Is there anything else, Anastasia, around that, or is that all good? I apologise, I'm in my Jarmies. I had a long night at the hospital with my mum yesterday, so I'm in my Jarmies. Yeah, okay, cool. All right. We got anything else sitting there? We've got 8 minutes because I was just talking about the different dimensions, and if you've got something there, though, I'd much, I can do either, and I'd much prefer to answer any questions or anything that is related to you that you're finding a challenge, or you've got a problem with anything, big or small. Just let me know if you'd like that answered. You have a very good heart, by the way. I see a lot of purple around you. Okay, that's all good. Well, I just wanted to acknowledge that you have a good heart and that your intention for the connection is also a beautiful intention. What you can do today in order to also provide a good space for these two is to actually hold that. It's not holding the space, but to see the space as being containing everything within it that is about love, is about, it's just a good feeling space, and just hold it there, not having to see the outcome, but just being there in that, to know that you are a part of it too. And that's you participating in this family relationship. So how lovely to ask about all of that for your dad and your brother. All right, well, you have a beautiful day, and jump on anytime and ask a question. And I'm going to put some links down below, and if you wanted to do any further work, or anyone that gets online and watches the replay, I'll put those links there as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will. All right, well, I'm going to finish up with just finishing off the dimensions, because some of you that might watch the replay are also interested in what I have to say. So we've talked about the third one, haven't really talked about the fourth, which I will in a minute. And I've talked mainly about the fifth dimension and around why we always wanted to access that, and how our experience becomes more about that free-flowing. In truth, we're not attached to the fear and the stress and outcomes, having to have control. That's all part of the third dimensional realm and being part of the system. And as I said before, there's nothing wrong with third, fourth, fifth, or any other dimensions that exist as well. They just provide a certain experience. But because we're evolutionary creatures, that we are going to evolve, so we can't exist within a system forever, because we're not a system. So I want to talk a little bit about the fourth dimension just to finish up here. And we don't talk about it really because it's more about the dream state and what happens within that realm. And I used to years ago be an avid recorder of all my dreams and interpretation, etc. And in this, what would be important to know about it is that it's a dimension where light and dark energy still meet and where they are able to influence. So knowing that, I think I explained it before, that energy, we've been taught within the system that energy is something we have to access outside of us, and that it's a higher level. And so that sense of we never get to the higher level because we're never high enough because we're in the physical system, is part of that. The system wants this realm of experience wants you to be in the system because that's what it's designed for the purpose of experiencing the system. Now, once you become more attuned to your natural state of being, which is actually expansion, and that it's actually from inside, you realize that it's not about accessing anything outside of us, it's actually inside of us, and why everyone suddenly wants to gravitate when they start evolving. And they're evolving not because they need to become anything, but because of already who they are. And they recognize that they can actually start to expand within the physical system. So you can be in the system, not of it. Now, the importance of knowing this, and especially around dream state, because in my early days when I was starting to grow and develop, I thought that I only had to do a certain amount of growth and then everything would be perfect. And then I used to say to myself, well, this stuff doesn't work. I'm positive. I do things. I'm doing the work. I've done so much work. And this is in the really early stages. Now, I didn't know myself as my natural state. I didn't know that actually I was just going to keep evolving, and that I didn't really know where that was all going to play out. So where you can sort of take control, because the physical system is based on rules, regulations, patterns, and following the pattern. This is why our physical brain becomes pattern, because it's part of this physical experience. So it's all purposeful. There's nothing wrong with it. It's when you've grown enough, evolved enough inside it, go, oh, I've evolved enough in the system, and now I can evolve and experience myself as somewhere else. So this fourth dimension is to be intentional around it, knowing who you are. It's about, if you have questions, make them high. Make them not high. What do I need to know that would be good for my highest purpose? Or you might say, I need some clarity around my career. What is required right now? They're high quality questions. If you go into your dream state, so then you will be influenced, because dark and light can influence each other in this. This is why we can become dinosaurs or dragons, and we can be running from fear, terrified. We can look like we're going to be murdered. Sorry, that's balancing on my pillow. All these things, we've got dark and light forces meet within here, and why it's such an important probably realm to have some understanding about, so that you get the most from it while you're in there in your dream state. So to go in with those intentions, and then the dark forces can't influence your system, right? And compared to if you're stressed and you go to bed stressed and you're fearful, and you're going to bed with those fearful thoughts about tomorrow, then this is where the dark forces will start to also, depending on where you are at in your evolution, will start to have some sort of influence here. So that both those forces still exist. In the fifth dimension, none of that exists, but we can still operate in the third dimension, and we have control over our fourth dimension. So just knowing that little bit of information is probably a good thing. And I'm going to finish it off there. Just have a wonderful day, wonderful week, lots of blessings, and we'll talk soon. Okay, bye-bye. And thanks for your question, Anastasia. Bye-bye. We'll meet again.